Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be comparing a 2020 Jaguar F-Pace SVR to a 2020 Range Rover Velar SVA. So, as always, a huge shout out and thank you to the Land Rover Jaguar here in downtown Salt Lake for providing us with the SVR and with the SVA. Check out the inventory in the link below if you're in the market for a Jaguar or a Land Rover. Let's get into the video. Going to the hoods of both the F-Pace and the Velar. So, starting with the F-Pace over here, we have a supercharged V8 that goes to an 8-speed automatic transmission. Fuel economy is 16 around town and then 21 on the highway. Power output's 550 horsepower and then 502 pound-feet of torque. Now, coming over to the Velar SVA, we have the same 5-liter supercharged V8 that also goes to an 8-speed automatic transmission. Fuel economy is a little bit less, 15 around town and then 20 on the highway. And again, same power outputs, 550 horsepower, 502 pound-feet of torque. If you're wondering why I have both the key fobs, it's because, well, both of these have the light systems. You can see the headlights on both the Velar and the Jaguar pop on, and I can press them both, and, well, they'll pop off, and I didn't drop the keys at all, so that was a masterful move. But let's go over the front end. So, starting with the SVR, I like the little vents there at the top of the hood. It's a nice little aesthetic touch. And then the LED lights here, I mean, it's signature F-Pace, nothing too crazy there. I like how they've turned the little Jaguar logo into a sensor, and then you do get the little SVR logo right there as well. But yeah, the whole front end is just so aggressive. You get those big air intakes all throughout. Just all of the venting that's happening on the front end is just crazy. And then the little front splitter there at the bottom, I mean, it's just like, boom, just crazy aggressive. Now, coming over to the Velar, again, it's kind of like signature Velar. Everything is blacked out, so it does have that kind of like nice, sporty look to it. One thing that is pretty neat, the actual Range Rover logo, you can see there's kind of like these little black imprints on it. I think that's a nice little touch. I love the LED accent lights on the Velar. I definitely think it's a nice look on them, and then you get a ton of venting compared to a standard Velar, so both of them just have like this really aggressive front end. Let's go over things on both the Velar and the F-Pace. So we've got 22-inch rims here on the F-Pace. The Velar also has 22-inch rims. 265mm tires on the front, 265mm tires in the front of the F-Pace. However, the F-Pace has 295mm tires in the back, whereas the Velar has 265, so a little bit less tire in the back. Now, in terms of the rim design itself, I love the rims on the Velar. I like the rims on the F-Pace. I mean, both of them look good. I love how they did red brake calipers on both of them. And you see the back rotors are an okay size, but the front rotors over here, I mean, just look how massive that is on the Velar, and then also on the F-Pace. They're just huge. You do get this cool little venting there on the side of the F-Pace as well, and then you kind of get like the molding here, so like little fender flares. Goes down to be like a side skirt on the bottom and then heads to the rear. On the Velar, you can see it's all smooth, nothing too crazy happening there, but you get this nice like body line that goes all the way down, and the door handles, when they are locked, it does have like that like flush look with the body. But side to the rear. Here's our key fob for the F-Pace. Pretty simple. You've got your unlock and your lock function, and then the function to open up the rear. If we actually pop into the rear here, notice that the cargo cover is built in, and then I already pulled the handle on this side, but forgot to put the seat back up. But you guys know that the seat can basically fold down if you did watch my Jaguar SVR review. You get this set of floor mats, and you get all these other boxes, little toolkit that comes with it. But another nice little touch here on the back is, well, there's a spare tire underneath, so I think that is pretty neat. But in terms of storage space, I mean, it is a pretty decent amount back here. And then finally, when you are done, just press the button at the top and it'll slow lower back down. Now here's our key fob for the Velar. Same thing, you've got your unlock, your lock, and then, well, the hatch opens up just like in the Jag. Now notice you get a bunch of boxes, but I'm not exactly sure what these are for. There's no labels. Regardless, we do have some floor mats underneath. You get that same spare tire, so I'm not going to lift that up again. Only difference here on the Velar is you do get the air suspension to raise and lower the rear of the Velar, so I mean, that's cool. And then also the cargo cover is different, so it's like on a sliding track instead of being part of the hatch. Then the button to lower it down is the same. Now, while the lights are still on, I want you guys to quickly look at the taillights in both of these. So the Jaguar, these look super similar to what is on the F-Type. So the F-Pace and the F-Type, super similar lights and also similar names. Now on the Velar, it's got like the 3D LED lights, so they kind of just have those little like strips. I think it's a nice little touch, definitely a neat design thing. Back over to the SVR, the biggest difference between this and the Velar, other than like it's kind of like more rounded in the rear, is the exhaust tips. They are rounded in the back, so they just go for that kind of like rounded design. You can see the tires are pretty girthy, and then you got more venting there on the side, which again is a cool look, but again, just more rounded on the F-Pace. On the Velar, notice that it's round, but it's kind of like squared off to an extent, and then they do the kind of like faux exhaust tips with these squares. The actual exhaust you can see is hiding in there, and obviously it is circular, but you can see the tires are a little bit more narrow. And well, that is everything for the rear. In terms of the rear design, I think the Jaguar looks a little bit better. You get keyless entry here on the F-Pace. Now here is the door panel in the back. You got this nice like accented red leather with the carbon fiber trim, really nice. And then the seats are really cool. So it's kind of like a bucket type seat, and you get those cool kind of red accents in the perforations all throughout the seats. Now actually stepping into the F-Pace, it's really easy to get in, and then you notice the bucket seats here in the front, but we have our vents in the back. You do get climate controls for the rear, and you get heated and ventilated seats, which pretty crazy. But yeah, there's 4 climates in this technically, because you have the 2 climates here in the back. And then yeah, just look at it as it's all closed. It's just like a nice look with all of the red leather. But pulling this down, we can see you got a couple more cup holders, and that's all for the F-Pace. Now popping out, again, it's easy to get out, and shutting that one. Coming over to the Velar, got the cool trick doors. Now notice that this one, they went for kind of like all blacked out on the interior, so like everything is black with the trim and with the leather. And then you notice that with the seats too, they do a little bit of kind of like white-ish accent and kind of like gray white. So like this is kind of gray here, and then with the white stitching. But popping in, it's just as easy to get in as the F-Pace. And you can see the seat in the front doesn't have that like crazy bucket type look. Coming down the vents, you get the same little kind of like climate control section here in the rear, but the SUV does have to be on to use that function. And then you'll notice the cup holder thing in the back. It's all the same. We do have keyless entry here at the front of the F-Pace. Now here is the door in the front. Again, you get that same red accenting carbon fiber on the side of the door. Window controls up here. You've got your memory seat controls down there. Now here are the seats in the front. So yeah, you get those crazy sport bucket seats. Power adjustments are on the side of the seats. There's what the pedals look like. And then you got the adjustments for like the tailgate to open that up. And then, by the way, steering wheel adjustments on the other side. Paddle shifters on the back. Coming over to the Velar, press that and it'll pop open, and the mirror will also pop open. But again, they go for that kind of like blacked out theme with the Velar. And by the way, this has a I think it's like $3,500 sound system. There's your memory seat controls. You've got your window controls right there. And then here are the seats in the front with the nice quilting, kind of like the grayish white accents on it. Adjustments on the side of the seat. Pedals down below at the bottom. You've got your controls to open up like the rear hatch, your parking brake. Steering wheel adjustments also on the other side, and then paddles. I mean, they look pretty much identical. Before I start up this F-Pace, I just want to mention, if you want a little bit more in-depth look at the interior, again, check out my review in the description below where I just review this by itself. But starting it up, she's a loud one, and gauges do a sweep. All of this starts up. Now I'm just going to talk about the differences between this and the Velar. Obviously the logo at the center of the steering wheel is different, and then the controls here on the side of the steering wheel, they're the same controls, but they just look different. So just remember how the controls here on the F-Pace look, and then obviously it says SVR down here where the Velar is not going to have that. And then the controls on the side, just how they look, you'll notice they're significantly different on the Velar. Paddles, I mean, those are the same, and that's everything pretty much for the steering wheel. And then coming into the little center stack right here, the gauges do look different compared to the Velar. They kind of have like, I wouldn't necessarily call it like a sportier look. They just look different. But then also the drive modes, when you go through them, it is different than what's on the Velar. The Velar like shows a full vehicle, which you'll see, but this one, it just kind of shows the drive modes. But notice it does change the color of the gauges depending on the drive modes. And there aren't as many drive modes in the Jaguar as there are in the Land Rover. This one has a few drive modes. You notice the Land Rover has quite a bit more for like off-road drive modes. Another difference is the screen setup. So you notice the backup camera is going to be the same between the two. So here's what the backup camera looks like in the Jag. But yeah, in terms of like the infotainment system setup, they will be the same in both of them. You'll get the sidebar in both of them. Like all these little functions here. This part right here is pretty much the same. The biggest difference though is the Jag doesn't have that cool like tilting screen that you'll see in the Velar. And then you'll notice that the Jag has just regular analog climate controls just here at the bottom, but the seats are up in the touchscreen. So in the Velar, they're down below, but in here, they're in the touchscreen. So you have to go up to the touchscreen and then see, I can press down to turn on the air-conditioned seat, for example. And then the shifter is way different. This one has like an actual shifter, so like you do have to push this button at the front to get into the gears. But yeah, it is a traditional shifter, whereas the Velar, you'll see it's got the little dial thing. The drive modes are down here on the Jaguar, which, yeah, pretty interesting. It's just a bunch of little kind of like plastic buttons. So down here we have the exhaust button, and then you got like your off-road cruise control, parking brake right there. Couple cup holders. Here's the armrest. It's just a traditional armrest, nothing too crazy. Got a couple USBs and a 12 volt, and then you've got the red leather at the top. Now coming over to the glove box, you got this nice red stitching with the black leather, and opening up the glove box, I mean, it's pretty normal size, nothing too crazy happening there. And then finally we are going to pop up top. So notice that this does have the Alcantara headliner, so it's a pretty nice touch. And then the sunroof. The sunroof does function the same on them, so I'm going to skip the sunroof on the Velar. All I have to do is like lightly tap it. Oops, I pressed too much. If you lightly tap it, notice the sunroof will barely move, but if I press it all the way in, then it'll move fully. They have the same operation for their sunroofs. Now the push button for the Velar is kind of in a weird place, but when you do start it up, see the dial will pop up, and that screen also kind of like moves into place. So if you guys didn't quite catch that, well, actually now it's not going to do it because I turned it on, but the screen like rises up into place. Here's the steering wheel on the Velar. So you notice it says Range Rover instead of the little Jaguar logo, and then there is nice like leather and stitching around the airbag cover, which, I mean, it's a nice little touch. You got the black trim down there, and like I said, same functionality. The controls just look a little bit different, and then you can see what the paddles look like. Now here's that little center screen on the Velar, so it just looks a little bit different. And then when you go through the drive modes, you notice that here on the center screen, just actually what it does is it shows a picture of the Velar, whereas the Jaguar just showed kind of like a little icon for the different drive modes. Now when you do go into the different drive modes here on the Velar, it doesn't quite change the gauges as much as it did on the Jag, like in terms of the colors and all that. Changes them just slightly, but it's just not the same, if that makes sense. I mean, you guys can see a difference between eco mode, and then if I go over into the sportier mode, the dynamic mode, it's just like a little change with the RPMs. You can see it's red down right there, but I mean, that's pretty much it. Now you can see this little center screen right here looks pretty much identical to what is on the Jag. I just have it in a different color function, so it's easier for you guys to see. Now, like I said, the only difference in this screen really is the fact that you can tilt the screen. Other than that, the functionality on it is identical to what is on the Jag for that screen. Now we have a completely separate screen down here. The Jag has like analog controls. This one has a separate touchscreen, so like the climate controls are all down here, so you can control it via these little dials. If you press the dial in, it'll switch over to the seats. You notice I have the AC function on right now, and then you can go over to like the seat tab, for example. You have the vehicle information, so this will show you the different drive modes, and then also you have the different ride height settings since it does have the air suspension. But yeah, if I want to go to eco mode, for example, just have to press that and it'll go over to it. Notice that, yes, you do this for the exhaust, and then, well, let's press the helmet. Available in dynamic program. So we'll go over to dynamic, press the old helmet, and, well, you can see that you've got the setup for it. So I think that's a pretty neat little thing where you can change the setup in the dynamic mode. I just barely learned that, which is kind of sad, but that's everything for that screen and that screen. You can see you've got a couple more controls here: stability control, hill descent control, and then here's the shifter for the 8-speed automatic. It is a dial shifter, so you have to like shift through, and then you have to push in to go into shift. So notice that I can't just go to drive in, I have to actually push in. So you've got to be committed to manually shifting the gears yourself. Other than the shifter, we do have little cup holder here. You just press the Range Rover logo. Got a 12 volt and then another cup holder. Center console is a little bit different. So the Jaguar is just one piece and the Velar it's two separate pieces and they move independently of each other, which I think is a nice little touch. And then notice that it is felt lined. You've got another little USB and a 12 volt. Closing all that, we can pop over to the glove box, which is lined with felt. The Jag is just plastic, and then the kind of like trim up above just feels a little bit nicer than what's in the Jag. I wasn't going to go over the top, but then I realized the Jag doesn't have this. So this one doesn't have a sunglass holder. It just has like this giant black piece, which I probably just got some fingerprints over. Sorry. But yeah, you guys can see same headliner, same sunroof, functions the same way. So everything else at the top is the same. Let's quickly go over pricing. So the Velar stickers for about $101,000. The Jag stickers for about $92,000. So, I mean, you're talking about a difference of $9,000 between the two from a price point standpoint. Now we do have to pick a winner, so I do think the Velar is a more beautiful vehicle compared to the F-Pace. That being said, even though this is better looking, I feel like the F-Pace in this segment is a little bit more of a better value. Obviously it's less money, but if you guys saw my driving portion on it, which I will include a link to that video in the description below, where I drive this car and then I also drive the Velar as well. The F-Pace, it just feels like it performs a little bit better. It definitely sounds a little bit better compared to the Velar. And so yeah, for that reason, I'm going to be picking the F-Pace and also those bucket seats on the interior. I mean, just all around, I think it's a little bit of a better value. That is going to sum things up for our video on the F-Pace SVR and the Velar SVA. But again, I want you guys to let me know if you'd rather go for the SVR or the SVA and why. And again, a huge shout out and thank you to the Land Rover and Jaguar here in downtown Salt Lake for providing us with both of the cars. Definitely check out the inventory in the link below. I will see all of you in the next video.